lost are saved, find their way at the sound of your great name. All condemned, feel no shame at the sound of your great name. your great name. Your great name.
My name's Alicia Sharpton, and I'm honored to be here today. I'm the founder of Beauty for Ashes, a healing place. And I want to say first that, I am, pardon me? No, I'm good. I'm just kind of moving my hands around. I'm good. I am a daughter of the King. But, for a long time in my life, I didn't know that. I knew Jesus, but I didn't know how much Jesus loved me. I didn't know that he could use a broken person, an addicted person, a messed up person, an insecure person. I never dreamed. I am an ordinary person that he changed. And it's because of him that I get to do what I do today. I was born almost 60 years ago. And that's a long time. A lot of things have changed over the years. I've seen a lot of things in my lifetime. I've had the privilege of being married for almost 40 years this next year. I have 3 children. My oldest is in his late 30s, and my baby's at 24. And so throughout my life, I've had struggles. I've had challenges. And I can tell you that today there's still struggles and there's still challenges. But I serve a mighty God who can overcome and help me overcome those things that have caused turmoil and tragedy and things in my life, because we're pretty much guaranteed that here on earth. But one day we're out of here and it's over. No more tears, no more nothing. But until then, we have a job to do. God called me as a young girl. I came out of the womb in a basket and went to church. So all I've known is the family of God. And it's been a blessing in my life. For a long time I thought, you know what, I don't even have a testimony. My testimony don't sound like everybody else's, because, it was basically me and my sister. She always got in trouble and I always tried to get her out of trouble. And that was just all it was. But the Lord showed me that my knowledge of him at 13, receiving him as my Savior, spared me from so many things. And today, I'm thankful for that. I used to worry because I didn't have anything to tell. But the enemy had me blinded. But after my children my last one got into kindergarten, the Lord called me to ministry. And he said, it's time for you, because I had a couple of teenagers, and I was a youth pastor at one of the churches in White House, a local church in White House. And it was a wonderful time. I got to spend a lot of years counseling young people, counseling their families, and doing things like that. And I realized that it wasn't about me. It was about what Jesus could do in them. And so my job was to show them and take them to the place that they needed to go to be restored, to be rescued, and to be changed. Over a period of time, some things happened in my life, and ministry, unfortunately, is not the glory road. There are a lot of things that can happen, and we have to stay connected to the Lord, because he's our strength. And sometimes we don't even know what we're doing. Sometimes we don't do the right thing. Sometimes we don't know the right thing. But God is such a great guider and a God to us that he moves us forward. But in 2004, I took a job at Christian Community High School in White House. And I had the privilege of being the minister of students there. And it was wonderful, because I got to be the best teacher there was, because I didn't really teach necessarily. I just took them on trips. And I did their chapels, and we had a blast together. But what I taught them was character. I taught them how to be men and women of God. And that was so much fun because, see, you can depend on Jesus to do that for people if you're willing to tell them about him. And so during that time, when I left the school, the Lord gave me a vision because I have a passion for people. I've always had that passion my whole life. I just want to help. I just want to help. And so the Lord gave me a vision, and it was of a school. And in the back of the school, there were dorms and dorms of women. And I knew the women were broken, but I really wasn't sure how they got there and what their brokenness was from. In 2010, my husband and I dealt with the addiction of my son. We found out that he had been addicted to crack cocaine for over a year. He lost about 70 pounds in our midst, and I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint it because I was ignorant to it. But in my heart as a mother, I knew something was wrong with my boy. And usually, with my son anyway, and most mothers can do this, if you push them far enough, they're going to tell you what's going on. And I pushed him, and I pushed him, and I pushed him because I knew something wasn't right. And he shared with me about his addiction, and it was about a year that we dealt with that. And to be honest with you, addiction is so difficult that it not only touches the addict, but it touches the family. My morals and my values, most of them were put aside. My husband said, "Don't you give him any money." And I'd go, "I have to give him money because he's out on the road and he don't have any gas in his car." And so I'd sneak over here and give him money. And then he would steal from me, and he'd steal from my husband, and it was just a vicious thing. But in my ignorance, I wanted to help him. But I realized, tough love, sometimes it's imperative that we do it. Because you know what? We get in trouble sometimes, and the Lord says to us, "I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you see that free will that you're asking for. Because you're going to find out from that I'm the only one that you can depend on. You can't even depend on yourself." So through that situation, it really hurt my marriage. It hurt me. And when we finally got him to a place of going to a recovery center, I realized I was as sick as he was. I was an enabler. And you can be sick as an enabler. So addiction affects the whole group, the whole family. And I would like to ask every one of you today, if you have been addicted, you know someone that's addicted that's close to you, or you've ever, lived next to somebody in addiction, raise your hand. It's pretty much everybody. We have an epidemic in our country now. And it's getting worse. But I'm here to tell you, one by one, Beauty for Ashes, a healing place, is bringing these women out of addiction. When I found out about my son, the Lord spoke to me and he said, those women that you saw, they're addicted. Sometimes we can get a vision or we can have a dream and it's a hope for the future, but it is not time yet. We have to be trained. We have to walk through the fire and come out, and we don't even smell like smoke. And I feel like today the Lord has shown me in my life that I don't have to smell like smoke whenever I do go through the fire. But instead, He'll be with me, and He'll use that to bring beauty for my ashes. He did that in my life. And about 7 years later, the Lord brought me through some things. I trained at another center, and then He said, "Your dream, it's time." And I was like, "Oh gosh, I don't even know what I'm doing. I've never run a business before. I just know how to minister to people." He said, "Look, I just need you to minister to people. I'll do the rest." Because if we don't trust Him in what He's given us and what He's shown us, how is He ever going to work in our lives? You just have to step out and believe. And I remember sitting on the front porch one day, and he wears me out. If I don't do what he says, he'll peck at me because he knows I'm going to eventually say okay. So I was sitting out on the porch one day, and And a friend of mine said, Alicia, you know that you're never going to be satisfied until you do what the Lord's called you to do. You'll never, there will be nothing ever that will satisfy you like He. And so I said, okay, God, I'll do it. I know my neighbors thought I was crazy because I was just by myself on the porch and I threw up my hands and I said, okay. And I screamed, yes, God, I'll do it. From that moment forward, my life has been changed because I have not had to do anything. He's done everything. He's provided a way because He's the way maker. He's told me what I needed to know that I didn't know. He's brought the finances. He's done everything. In 2016, we opened the doors to Beauty for Ashes, a healing place in Springfield, Tennessee. We have 8 beds in this home. And our program is very strict. It's very hard. I spent 1 year in my living room, in my big cozy chair, in the Lord's lap. And I said, let me tell you something. I love you, God, and I know you love me. But if you don't tell me what to do, I'm going to make you look bad. I'm going to make you look bad. So I need you to show me everything. And for that year, I prayed, I researched, I listened, I wrote down, and He gave me the whole skeleton to this whole thing. And I stand here today and tell you that everything He told me has come to pass because I trusted in Him. And He's the only one that we can trust in. So the center is a 9-month in-house Christ-centered program. And it's for those women that have been affected by addiction. At this time, I'm going to let our girls come and they're going to do a drama for you. But these are their real stories. This program is not easy. And it's not easy because most of these women have gotten to a place of whether they're going to decide to live or die. Addiction is no joke. And for these women, a lot of them have gotten to that place where they have nothing else to do but to reach up and cry out for something that can save them. And that's why I do what I do. Addiction is described as the result of avoiding the pain in our lives by medicating with a substance, activity, or a relationship. We can become addicted to almost anything. The problem with addiction in general is that it will dominate our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. They rob us of our energy. They hinder productivity. They destroy relationships. They keep us in guilt, shame, fear, and defeat. Sometimes in our lives we think that drugs and alcohol are the only things that we can be addicted to. But in our society today, there's so many more things. And I'm going to just kind of read a little list to you because I think that it's important that we recognize where the enemy lies to us and tells us, oh, it's okay. But anything that separates us from God is an idol. Anything that we but put before Him, that we want more than Him, is an idol. And so I think it's important today to recognize some of the things that He slipped in our society today and told us it's okay. Caffeine, caretaking, the chase, children, chronic illness, cleaning, compulsive lying, computers, control, exercise, food, gambling, love, money, music, nicotine, pain, prescription medication, reading, relationships, religion, sex, soap operas, sugar, sweets, talking, telephone, video games, and work. And I have to tell you, I'm guilty of a lot of those things because I didn't realize that they were taking my sight away from the very thing, the very person that is who I am. He lives inside of me. I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. And so sometimes in our lives, we get so caught up in the things that we're doing that we don't even realize what's happening until it's too late. And those things have taken us down and nearly killed us. Nearly killed us. I think today that sometimes we have to give of ourselves to help this epidemic. This is not something that one individual can do. It's not something that just the church can do. The church lives inside of us. We are the church. And so today I asked you, who is it lately that you've reached out to, that you've spoken to, that you've given life to? Because, you know, when I was growing up, there was a lot of people that went to church. There were very few that didn't go. And when you didn't go, you stood out. Today, it's 100% reversed. Most of us are looked at like, oh, they're the church people. Because there's so many people that don't go. And we need to change that. We need to change that. And so I'm here to tell you that I'm raising an army in this place. And you know what? It doesn't matter what they've done. It doesn't matter what I've done. It doesn't matter what you've done, because the blood has covered that. What matters is that we accept the calling that God's given on our lives to stand up and raise up the church and raise up the family of God, so that those that do not know the Lord will come to know Him. And that's what we're doing at Beauty for Ashes. I have some stats that I want to read you today that some of you may not realize how bad the epidemic is, but this is it's probably based on last year's statistics, so it's probably even higher. In the United States, 16 million people need treatment for alcoholism. 8 million need treatment for drug addiction. 21 million people suffer from addiction, yet only 10% or fewer receive proper treatment. Tennessee is second in the country for prescription drug abuse. Tennessee has the 8th highest drug overdose rate in the United States. 800 drug-dependent babies will be born this year in Tennessee. 80% of Tennessee crimes are drug-related. It is estimated that there are 800 meth labs operating in Tennessee at any given time. Jails are becoming more populated with drug and alcohol offenders. The Department of Social Services is seeing more children come into custody, and the death toll from overdose increases daily. This is reality. But the answer is Jesus. The answer is Jesus. Today I want Miss Ginger, some of you know her, and I want you to just listen to her talk about what this ministry has meant in her life. Ginger and I have known each other since the school days. In fact, her daughter and I taught together. And through that, I met Miss Ginger. And she is just a woman of God. And she loves these ladies. And she's been a mentor in my life. So I want you to hear her talk about how these girls have blessed her. You want me to hold you?
Yes, please do. I'm not usually a spokesperson in this group, but I want you to know that this lady is for real. Most of you know my daughter, Gina, and I met her through Gina when they were both working at the Christian school up there in the White House. And when she first presented this program, I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, Alicia. I'll just be the grandma to the group and bless them any way I can. And they all hold me up now because I can't hardly walk after 2 major back surgeries. But I just have to tell you that watching this from the get-go, it has been my salvation. It has been the greatest blessing of my whole life. To know these ladies instantly is to love them, and they know I love them. I go with them to all of their doctor's appointments, and that's pretty personal. I sit in with them through all their examinations, and I spend a lot of time with them just one-on-one. And I personally think it takes a great deal of courage to do what they did here today. I think it takes a lot of guts to admit that you're wrong and come in and commit yourself to this kind of a program. 3 months they go by that they don't see a soul but the four walls of that house. And I'm also privileged to get to do their visitations with their families on the first time they get to go out. And it's so exciting to me to watch them blossom from the time they come in and we search through everything they bring in, their purse, down to their underwear, and for them to submit so wholeheartedly to a situation like that. I think that takes courage to admit that you've hit rock bottom and there's nowhere to go but up. And to watch what God has done in the lives of these women, to go in, they only have one bathroom in the house. Can you imagine all these women with one bathroom? You have to shower on cue, you have to eat on cue, you go to bed on cue. That takes a lot of courage, in my opinion. And my life is just devoted to this cause. After I was widowed, I remember praying, Jesus, use me. Please don't refuse me. Surely there's a work that I could do. And inadvertently, this just got dropped in my lap. And I'm so blessed to know most of you in this congregation today, and most of you know my heritage. I had an uncle that was an evangelist like no evangelist on a personal basis, and my mother was that way too. And I thought, Lord, please plant that in my heart. And you know, he's done just that. And I find that even going into a restaurant, after I was first widowed, I kind of want to go off and sit by myself so nobody would notice that I was by myself. And the Lord began to deal with me in that respect. Don't do that. Seek out somebody else that's sitting there alone. And just maybe they have something that they would like to share with you. And I've been blessed in that. But each one of these girls have shared personally their stories with me. I don't ask, but I'm so flattered that they feel like they have enough confidence in me. And I tell them what I tell my grandkids, what goes on at Grandma's house stays at Grandma's house. Unless it's something Mama really needs to know. But I'm just so blessed, and I wanted you all to know how supportive that Neil has been to us. About this time last year, we had a big fundraiser over at New Life, and he spent the whole day out there with us, helping us raise several $1,000s, and he was so sweet. He said to me, Ginger, all I want to do is just be a blessing. And he has been that to us. And when we approached him on coming over here to see you all today, he says, I just want to be a blessing. But I'm so blessed to be here, and I am so excited to see you guys that I've known all of your lives and your parents' lives. Some of them I've known since we were just teenagers, and that's been a little while ago. But I just want you to know what a blessing this has been to me. And the interesting part to me is these girls praise and worship in the house, just like you saw them worship here today. I walk into that house and you can feel the walls reverberate with the Spirit of the Lord. When they come out of this program, most of them are better read in the scriptures than I am after 80 years. To me, that is a big plus, and I'm so thankful. They know I love them. I don't have to tell them that, and they know how much. And it's an instant love affair. From the time they walk in, I don't see any faults. I don't see any bad things. God didn't make any bad stuff. And it's just my privilege to have watched what God has done with them down through the years, and it's such a blessing to get to work with this sweet lady.
sometimes you guys may have some questions and are just curious about some things. So I wanted to give you a chance to ask those. One thing I wanted to say is she was right. The first 90 days, there's no phone calls, no letters, no visits. Because sometimes the Lord said we are a rescue and retreat center. Sometimes you got to retreat away with God with no distractions. So there's no cell phones, there's no TV. We choose the movies. It's very restricted. But what happens is God transforms them through the Word. He transforms their heart and their minds, and he takes them to a different place. In fact, sometimes a seed, when you push it down in the dirt, a lot of times it's in the darkness, and you think, oh, how's it going to grow down there? Well, it dies down there so that it can come back to life. And that's exactly what happens to these women. They're almost dead, and we put them in that place, and God, he restores everything, and he brings them. And after their 90 days, I just get chills thinking about it. When you look at them, their families don't even recognize them. Because really and truly, they've never been this person. Because he does something different. But the person that they lost in addiction has been found. The person they were before addiction, they've been found. It's a beautiful story. I want to leave you with one other thing. What has he put inside of you that you've not birthed yet? What is it that he wants you to do to change this world that needs to be changed, that you've said, I don't think so? Because I can stand here today and tell you that I am a product of, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I said yes. And I hope you'll say yes too.